Hello, hello. How are you today, tonight, morning or evening, whenever you're watching? How are you? Hello, it's me, Baby Gail. You know I gotta get a good song in before we start something serious here. Okay? Because this video is a serious fucking video. Let me tell you, I didn't even put my lipstick on yet. I got so concerned and so unhappy, so pissed about what I'm about to talk about. You guys will too by the end of this video. I'm sorry, but I need to tell someone. And you guys are my best friends. So, what am I supposed to do, my lovelies? You're my best fucking friends. I need to talk, okay? I need to talk. Sometimes. Alright. Whenever it is that you're with me today, I have an insane story to tell. These two unhinged women, Kathleen Kennedy and Caitlin Poor, are now described as monsters. And you're about to find out why. The absolute worst pair of tenants that any landlord could ever decide to rent to. You would think that they displayed signs of inhabitability, that you would be able to tell that these people were going to be unhinged and do some messed up stuff. But no, these people, these women, had commendable jobs, had perfect credit scores, the typical, I guess, stereotype of what you would consider perfect tenants. This couple, though, that they rented from, Haley Wood and her husband, do have a pretty good following on TikTok. Thank God. Because we could get this story out there to people. And that's what needs to happen in these situations, I believe. For these people to be held fucking accountable for their disgusting and vile actions. Little did Haley Wood know that she was making the absolute worst decision of her life by renting to this couple. But she didn't have a clue. She thought she did the right thing. Anybody would have done the same. Please watch this video and be warned if you own property. But in reality, how would they have ever known that these people were going to do what they did and these people were bad people? They would have never known. So how do we protect other landlords from tenants like this? And also, how do we protect other tenants from having to then pay the price for what another tenant did ultimately?
So welcome to Season 1, Episode 1 of Nightmare Tenants, featuring Caitlin Poor of Atrium Health and her partner Kathleen Kennedy of DHL Logistics. So my husband and I, we have a rental property, and it's the home that we brought our kids home in from the hospital, and it's the house that we had planned to actually give to one of our children in the future. Our old tenant of 2 years was moving out, and we actually had a great experience with him. Anytime he had a concern, it was always handled and addressed promptly and professionally by my husband. And, ultimately we still have a good relationship now. So this is where we enter Miss Caitlin and Kathleen. They moved in on Super Bowl Sunday and were only in the property for a week's time. When they moved in, they were informed that there was some paint touch-ups that needed to be completed in the kitchen just due to the removal of the popcorn ceiling. Ultimately, they were unhappy that this didn't happen in the expected timeline, but did express just how grateful they were for my husband's overall communication, especially because they had apparently had a bad experience with a landlord in the past, which should have been foreshadowing maybe. But once they moved in, they had an extremely nitpicky list of demands in their words. They stated that if we did not meet their demands, that they would be moving out. Some of them were a little bit odd. They sent a message stating that they had clogged the toilet with their own human feces and that we would need to take care of it. And that is their wording. And the wording itself kind of just gave me weird vibes. But regardless, their concerns were addressed. They were told that if they wanted to move out, that we would break their lease. But ultimately, they were upset that they weren't going to get their February rent back in spite of the fact that they were living there in part of February. And they said that they would consult with legal counsel and get back to us as to whether or not they were going to remain in the property. They proceeded to use racial slurs, including the N-word, at my husband. So ultimately, he had a bad feeling about the tenants, and he stated that he was going to go out there and just do an inspection on Friday to make sure that everything was the way that it was supposed to be. So he went out on Friday, everything was in place, and fast forward to Monday, we get a call from the neighboring unit. We have a great relationship with all of our former neighbors. So they gave us a call, and they informed us that there was water damage in their home that was apparently coming from our unit. So then 2 minutes later, I get a call from my other neighbor. She's not in the neighboring unit, but she gave me a call and she said that there's something going on in her house. There's water all in the street. She said she thought it was because it was raining, but she noticed that it was coming like from all around our property. And so I asked her if our tenants were still there. She said that they left on Saturday morning. She said that a moving truck woke her up, and she said that they had a crew of like 20 people, and they were basically hustling to get out of there quick. And so she knew something was going on. So we get in the car and we head to our old rental property, which is about an hour and a half away from where we live. And we get a call from the HOA, and they told us that they suspected that there was foul play. So as we're pulling up to the property, we see water just covering the parking lot. There's water on the outside of our house, water surrounding the property, coming out of the side paneling. The fire alarm is going off. We open the door and there is water everywhere. The entire first and second level is completely covered with water. It's seeping through everything, and basically the ceiling is caving in. So the fire department had to come to shut the alarm off, and they pointed out where Caitlin and Kathleen had actually unscrewed the toilet and damaged the pipe to where they could tell that it was intentionally done. We saw where both of the pipes on both toilets were destroyed, and the water was turned on, so basically it would run and flood the place. So they completely destroyed our home to the point where it is uninhabitable. And not only that, but the neighbor's home is now destroyed. And me personally, I'm not understanding how anyone could do this to someone's home, especially when my husband was nothing but accommodating and professional with them. And it really honestly just takes it a step further when Caitlin, who works for Atrium as a PA on emergency, would think it was a good idea to create a safety hazard and a fire hazard in a unit attached to other homes where there are children and elderly people living literally next door. And then following the incident, when we called them regarding the flood, they stated that they were not going to talk about it and that they just wanted to return their keys back. So obviously, audacity is running at an all-time high on this Tuesday, and it's in moments like these when I'm reminded that while God is real, demons are too, because this is nothing but demonic behavior to intentionally vandalize someone's home to the point where we can no longer enter the property, let alone have somebody live there. All of the time and the money and the investment is gone and wasted. This was truly an act of pure evil, and these two people really need to be held accountable for their actions. And it's truly a shame that anyone could really do something like this. On our end, we have filed a police report. We have contacted their employers. We'll continue to keep you updated as we document the progression of all of this. We've of course contacted our lawyers. It's an unfortunate and an unnecessary situation. And while it's a huge hit, we're just trusting in God and remaining positive. And we just ask for your continued prayers during this time. But ultimately, we know that everything will work out for the better. So I hope that your Tuesday is happier than ours is. But that's it for season 1, episode 1. Catch y'all on episode 2.
No signs of this whatsoever. But according to these two tenants, if they would have known, now this is quotes of what they said. If they would have known that they were renting from N-words, they never would have rented the house in the first place. So there's your red flag. There's that big red flag waving. These two women, like I said, are partners, and they rented from a woman named Haley Wood. Their names are Caitlin Poor and Kathleen Kennedy. I'm going to keep making sure that I say their names in this video because I want people not only to see that they're held accountable, but keeps holding them accountable. After Haley Wood had decided to rent to them, all of a sudden they had these unrealistic, unhinged demands.
Is I allowed the behavior. When he started to call me to fix things, I just would send people out to fix them. I didn't really question it too much. I never had this issue before. So with all my other tenants, they really only call when there's an issue, and I just send someone out and fix it, and that's the end of the story. But they probably call me once every 3 months, and what they say is broken really is broken. With this tenant, he thinks that things are broken that aren't broken, or he thinks that things aren't operating correctly that are operating correctly. For example, when it's 110 degrees in Phoenix, sometimes your air conditioner can only cool the place to like 78 degrees. So then when you call an air conditioning person out there, and they just look at it and say, yeah, I mean, it's 110 out, 78 is as cool as it's going to get. So those kind of things are going on and on and on. The hot water's not hot enough. The air's not cool enough. I allowed this. I paid for this stuff initially because this is one of my first rentals and one of my first tenants, and he's still with me. And I managed him poorly in the beginning. He's also calling the HOA for all these random things. Cars being parked there from across the street for a day. Dryer's not drying his clothes completely if he puts it on the quick cycle. You name it, I've heard it. So I talk a lot about managing your tenants correctly. And this is a tenant that I have not managed correctly. And I've let him tell me what I'm going to cover versus me tell him what I'm going to cover. So this makes it more challenging. And this is why I don't want you to get in this position. You always have to remember you're the boss. The conversation that I'm going to have with him is that there's certain things that are the tenant's responsibility and certain things that are the landlord's responsibility. For example, if he clogs the sink with hair or rocks or something random that he puts down the sink, he needs to pay for the plumbing. If it's sediment, I can pay for the plumbing. You always have to go back to the lease. For example, if he complains about ants in the house, the pest services are the tenant's responsibility in the lease. So I need to explain to him he can pay for an exterminator to come to the house and get rid of those ants, but that is not my responsibility. Also, and this is the toughest one, and this is where I have not been enforcing, is there certain things that I have to do as a landlord and certain things that I don't have to do as a landlord. I've never had someone take advantage of this, so I've really just rolled out the red carpet for my tenants. But now that I have a problem tenant, I need to make this crystal clear. The water gets hot. It just doesn't get as hot as he wants. That's not my problem. I don't have to fix that. Because truthfully, he can move out. That is an option. And that's kind of the hard conversation you have to have with your tenant. If this home have not been enforcing, is there certain things that I have to do as a landlord and certain things that I don't have to do as a landlord. I've never had someone take advantage of this, so I've really just rolled out the red carpet for my tenants. But now that I have a problem tenant, I need to make this crystal clear. The water gets hot. It just doesn't get as hot as he wants. That's not my problem. I don't have to fix that. Because truthfully, he can move out. That is an option. And that's kind of the hard conversation you have to have with your tenant. If this home is not to your standards, then maybe it's okay for you to put in a 30-day notice and move out, and I'll find somebody where the home is their standards. And that's a hard conversation to have. That is a conversation that I'm going to have with them. And it's a hard conversation. And I didn't need to have that conversation a few years later. I should have had it right away. And you need to have it with your tenants right away.
And Haley was stressing herself out to the max. Or Holly, I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right. Hallie was stressing herself out to the max, running around, taking care of all of these demands that these two women had. And she fulfilled all of these demands, mind you. All of them. Haley found it to be aggressive, but nonetheless, she wanted to make her tenants happy, so she did what they asked her to do.
But in people pleasing, you have to look and see who you're putting on pedestals. And then you have to question yourself and see, first ask yourself, am I deserving to be on that same pedestal that I put people on? Most times you're probably going to tell yourself that you're not deserving to be on that pedestal. You need to ask yourself why you're not deserving to be on that pedestal. Why is this person more deserving to be on this pedestal than me? There's something you're comparing yourself to, or there's something that you're fearing. Also in people pleasing, when we're trying to break away or dismantle the ideal or the notion of people pleasing, what you have to do is start to ask yourself, what am I sacrificing to keep these people happy? Most times the sacrifices that you're making within yourself are the best things that you value within yourself. They're the strengths that you see as weaknesses in yourself. Most times you even sacrifice your happiness to make other people happy. But will these people do the same thing for you? And is it reciprocated, right? Most times reciprocity is absent in people pleasing. We're giving a lot more than it is that we're receiving. You are deserving to receive exactly what it is that you desire to receive, but you have to affirm yourself enough to where you can start operating in that belief instead of the negative ones that you have.
As many many landlords would do for new tenants. No, thinking that you've got some good people in there. They're, even renting to you as a partnership and not having any discrimination towards you and what you do. But because they were black, you have a sudden problem. That doesn't make any sense.
White women, I'm gonna be honest. There's a broken trust between black women and white women. You see, when it came to slavery and it evolved into black women working in white people's homes, black women and white women were able to share experiences. But in the midst of finding those similarities out, white women knew the weaknesses and the vulnerabilities of black women and still chose, with the little power that they had in being white, they still chose to oppress black women instead of lifting them up. Now, we recognize that there were white women who were abolitionists and who were helpful. But let's not forget so was Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Stanton. And when they got the opportunity, they chose to fight for the rights of white women while leaving black women behind. Fast forward into the corporate world, where there are many meetings and many instances where white women have thrown black women under the bus to survive, to have power. And who could blame you? You did what was best for you. However, when black women did the same, there was a punishment.
You would think also that they had rented the place for a long time and then did something. No, they rented this home for exactly 1 week. 1 fucking week. This is getting it straight from the horse's mouth, okay? So then after Hallie made her video on TikTok to expose Caitlin Poor and Kathleen Kennedy, She didn't expect it to go as viral as it did, getting more than 3 million views and comments from people that were not happy. So, I mean, watch this. This is the second video to her Nightmare Tenants series. So I would like you to take a look at this and just see how much coverage all over that this story is getting. That warms my heart completely because it's about fucking time.
Welcome to Season 1, Episode 2 of Nightmare Tenants, featuring Kathleen Kennedy and Caitlin Poor, who basically turned our rental property into a swimming pool. So here are the latest updates. The story has basically blown up on social media with over 3 million views on TikTok and gaining traction on multiple news stations, including WXII 12.
Good evening, everyone. First Tonight in 12 investigates a troubling sight in the Triad, a Greensboro house gushing water at every corner.
WFMY News 2.
WFMY News 2's Manning Franks found out why things soured and the drastic steps taken.
You've likely heard stories of nightmare tenants.
They checked all of the boxes, they had a good credit score, they had good jobs.
But for the Morgans, that nightmare became a reality.
And ABC 45.
All of this situation started with 2 tenants.
We had a feeling that it wasn't going to be a pretty sight. And so as we were on the way, we just said we're going to prepare for the worst.
And in early February, Ainsley and Hallie Morgan say the worst began.
This even reached national attention in People magazine. I'm currently in Colombia celebrating my 30th birthday, but everyone has asked for updates, so I'll keep it short and to the point. A lawsuit has officially been filed, and I'm being represented by attorney Jason Keith at NextGen Law Firm. Their employment status at Atrium Health and DHL Logistics still remains unclear. Criminal charges are in progress, though we have faced significant delays, despite the officer confirming that we do have enough information and evidence to press charges. We've basically been bounced around between the magistrate's office and the police department, but we will not be stopping until these women are held accountable, and are closely monitoring how the Greensboro Police Department is handling this case. So some people have asked how we know that this was deliberate and not an accident. Well, here's why. Number one is timing. So the house was flooded the same weekend that Caitlin and Kathleen left completely unannounced. Number two, firefighters' findings. First responders immediately pointed out that the damage done was intentional upon arrival. And number three, plumber reports. 3 separate licensed plumbers came to inspect both upstairs toilets and had confirmed that the pipes had been intentionally loosened, and this would have only been able to have been done using a wrench, so clearly it was no accident. And number 4, malicious intent. Caitlin explicitly stated that if she had known N-words had owned the property, that she would have never moved in. So number 5, we do have ring camera footage. We have video evidence basically showing who entered and exited the property, including the days and times where they moved out. They were the last people in the property. No one else had access to the property or keys in general. Additional evidence has been submitted to our attorneys as well as police. So what is their response? If you've been waiting on their side of the story or to hear why they did it, according to ABC News, they claim that they did not do it. However, the real contradiction lies in their own police report, where they falsely claimed that I threatened to flood my own house during a phone call with them, a statement that also directly contradicts their own reported phone call to police in which they claimed that I threatened her life. So I'm not sure which story they're going with, but there they are. That accusation is not only false, but also impossible, being that the only time I ever spoke to them was after the flood happened, when I called to question them about what had occurred. So before this incident, all communication had been between them and my husband directly. Their statements simply do not add up. And for transparency, here is their exact statement to ABC 45 News, typos included. We deny all of the allegations made against us and are appalled and the lies being spread. At this time, we do not intend to make further statements to the media. Since this matter is now in litigation, we will defend ourselves in court. We urge people not to jump to conclusion based on one side of the story that's been told online. We have given all our evidence to our attorneys. Hurting someone verbally, hurting their property, or hurting them in any other way is not something we would ever do. Those things never fix anything. They just spread more misery. There is enough misery in the world. We try to spread kindness, compassion, and understanding. So not only was our home destroyed, but also our neighbor's home was destroyed. And the videos that you're looking at here are from their home, and they too are planning on pressing charges. So in terms of what's next for us, we want to be clear that we are not stopping until these individuals are held accountable. The delays in pressing charges have been frustrating, but we will not be ignored. We deeply appreciate all of the outpouring of support, and we'll continue to keep you updated as this case progresses. And thank you all for standing with us, and we look forward to episode 3.
And I just wanted to hop on here to say, I appreciate all the support that folks have given my wife and myself during this very difficult time. As people who are believers in God and in Jesus Christ, we believe that all things are going to work out in our favor. And again, we just appreciate the support. So thanks so much for that.
That a couple like this pay the price for being racist and inhumane. These women need to be charged criminally. Definitely. For sure. But Kathleen and Caitlin claim they didn't do that.
Oh, no. It wasn't me.
The only thing is why then did you hurriedly move out in the middle of the night with about 20 people to make sure that you got out of there fast? And the timing between how much flooding there was and everything else points right directly to you guys and about the time that you left the home. So ultimately, there is nobody else that it could have been. And 3 plumbers and authorities determined that this was intentionally done. Therefore, yes, you can be criminally charged, even with you saying and claiming that allegedly and all the things that you didn't do this. How dare anyone think this of them? They are some perfect white women. But I mean, what the hell? The kicker of all of this is the fucking racist comment. I'm sorry, but that set me off. I was pissed. So, Hollywood did get some great satisfaction out of all of this, and I want you to watch this TikTok to see just what satisfaction she received and how happy she is to have received it.
Welcome to Season 1, Episode 3 of Nightmare Tenants, featuring Caitlin Poor and Kathleen Kennedy, who destroyed our family's rental property. And also our neighbor's home. So this is the update you've all been waiting for. Caitlin and Kathleen have now officially been criminally charged under NC General Statute 14-127, injury to real property. While we are grateful that some level of accountability is happening, we have to ask, why aren't these charges felonies given the magnitude of the damage? So here's what the statute says. NC General Statute 14-127, injury to real property. If any person shall willfully and wantonly damage, injure, or destroy any real property whatsoever, he shall be guilty of a Class 1 misdemeanor. But NC General Statute 14-144, injury to real property malicious, states that if the damage is done willfully and maliciously, and the damage is valued at more than $5,000, the person shall be guilty of a Class 1 felony. So let's do the math. Mitigation, roughly $16,000. Property damage is now a minimum of $60,000. Mortgage payments continue on a now unlivable property. Estimated timeline until livable is roughly 10 months. This clearly meets, if not exceeds, the felony threshold, so we are calling on authorities to reassess the charges and apply NC General Statute 14-144 as the destruction was both willful and excessive in cost, and here is the current state of our home. So we'll keep you updated on how things progress from here. I just want to say thank you all again for the outpouring of support. My inbox is overflowing, and just know that I appreciate every single message. I'll see you back for episode 4, so stay tuned.
I mean, you guys, People Magazine even picked up this story. It's crazy. These 2 women are fucked as far as like being able to rent another home. Oh gosh. These women are fucked. Why would they do this? You know, why do this? It doesn't make sense. The racism is that strong that you'll destroy their property that they were saving to give to their children one day. You are sick bitches. Sick. And this is, you know what this is called? This whole bit, I'm going to start a series of my own called Bullshit with Baby Gail. And we're going to talk about the fucking bullshit that I find on TikTok and everywhere else. This is insanity. Never in my life have I heard of something so disgusting. And unfortunately, I have family in my family tree. I'll just be honest with you. People that I don't speak with, I don't have a relationship with, but they are very, extremely, disgustingly racist. And I refuse to have a relationship with them strictly because of that. I don't have to have any other reason. That's disgusting. Just to know that people that, and I've tried to educate them, I have tried so hard, fighting all the time. They aren't going to understand or knock off their racism until something big fucking happens, and it would have to be because of a black person that somebody, you know what I mean, that they'd have to be the hero, and my family would still probably find a reason that they aren't the hero. You know what I'm saying? It's just, these kind of people are just, you can't get through. Even you can try, and I have, you can't get through, unfortunately. And that's the kind of unhinged fucking people that end up doing some shit like this. This is crazy. And that's why I want everyone to be warned and take a look at this and understand it for what it is, to beware that it doesn't have to be the perfect tenant, because sometimes you get fucked no matter what. So always go into some things with an open mind and be willing to do your research and find out who you are really dealing with in these situations. But anyways, guys, that's the end of the video. I just wanted to bring this to everyone's attention. I love you guys with all my heart and soul. I will see you in the next video. I love you so much.